Did you hear what I was playing, Lane?
I didn't think it polite to listen, sir.
I'm sorry for that. For your sake. I don't play accurately. Anyone can play accurately, but I play with wonderful expression. When it comes to music, sentiment is my forte. I keep science for life.
Yes, sir.
Speaking of the science of life, Lane, have you got the cucumber sandwiches cut for Lady Bracknell?
Yes, sir.
Oh, by the way, Lane, I see from your book that on Thursday night, when Lord Shawman and Mr. Worthing were dining with me, 8 bottles of champagne are entered as having been consumed?
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint.
How is it that at a bachelor's establishment, the servants invariably drink the champagne? I ask merely for information.
I attribute it to the superior quality of the wine, sir. I have often observed that in married households, the champagne is rarely of first-rate brand.
Good heavens. Is marriage really so demoralizing as that?
I do believe it is a pleasant state, sir. I have had very little experience of it myself. I've only been married once, and that was in consequence of a misunderstanding between myself and a young person.
I don't know that I'm much interested in your family life, Lane.
No, sir. It is not a very interesting subject. I never think of it myself.
Very natural, I'm sure. That'll do, Lane, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax. Really, if the lower orders don't set us up a good example, what on earth is the good of them? They seem as a class to have absolutely no sense of moral responsibility.
Mr. Earnest Worthing.
My dear Ernest, how are you? What brings you up to town?
Oh, pleasure, pleasure. Well, what to bring one anywhere? Eating as usual, I see, Algie.
I believe it is customary in good society to take some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since Thursday?
In the country.
What on earth do you do there?
When one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses other people. It's excessively boring.
And who are these people you amuse?
Oh, neighbours, neighbours.
What, nice neighbours in your part of Shropshire?
Perfectly horrid. Never speak to one of them.
How immensely you must amuse them. By the way, Shropshire is your county, is it not?
Shropshire? Yes, of course. But why all these cups? Why the cucumber sandwiches? Why such extravagance when one's so young? Who's coming to tea?
Oh, merely Aunt Augusta and Gwendolen.
Oh, how perfectly delightful.
Yes, well, I don't know that Aunt Augusta will quite approve of your being here, old boy.
Well, may I ask why?
My dear fellow, the way you flirt with Gwendolen is perfectly disgraceful. It is almost as bad as the way Gwendolen flirts with you.
But I am in love with Gwendolen. I have come up to town expressly to propose to her.
I thought you said you'd come for pleasure. I call that business.
Utterly unromantic you
Yes,
are.
I can see nothing at all romantic in proposing. It is very romantic to be in love, but there is nothing romantic about a definite proposal. One may be accepted. One usually is, I believe. Then the excitement is all over. The very essence of romance is uncertainty. If I ever get married, I shall certainly try to forget the fact.
I have no doubt about that. The divorce court was invented especially for people whose memories are so curiously constant.
There is no use speculating on that subject. Divorces are made in heaven. Oh, don't touch the cucumber sandwiches, please. They're cut specially for Aunt Augusta.
Well, you've been eating them this whole time.
Yes, well, that's quite a different matter. She's my aunt. Have some bread and butter. Well, the bread and butter is for Gwendolen.
Oh.
Gwendolen is devoted to bread and butter.
And very good bread and butter it is.
Yes, well, you need not eat as if you were going to eat it all. You behave as if you were married to her already. You are not married to her already, and I don't think you ever will be.
Now, why on earth do you say that?
Well, in the first place, women never marry the men they flirt with. They don't think it right.
That is nonsense.
It isn't. It's a great truth. It accounts for the extraordinary number of bachelors one sees all over the place. In the second place, I don't give my consent.
Oh, your consent?
My dear fellow, Gwendolen is my first cousin, and before I allow you to marry her, you'll have to clear up the whole question of Cecily.
Cecily? What on earth do you mean by Cecily, Algernon? I don't know anyone by the name of Cecily.
Bring me that cigarette case Mr. Worthing left in the smoking room the last time he dined here.
Yes, sir.
Do you mean to say that you've had my cigarette case this whole time? I wish to goodness you'd told me about it. I was writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard and very nearly offering a large reward.
Well, I wish you would offer one. I'm more than usually hard up.
Well, there's no use in offering a reward, and now that the thing is found...
That is very mean of you, Ernest, I must say. However, it makes no matter, for now that I look at the inscription on the inside, I see that the thing isn't yours after all.
Of course it's mine. You've seen me with it 100 times. And besides, you have no right whatsoever to read what's inside it. It's a very ungentlemanly thing to read a private cigarette
It
case.
is absurd to make hard and fast rules about what one should read and what one shouldn't. Half of modern culture is based upon what one shouldn't read.
I'm well aware of the fact, but I don't propose to discuss modern culture. It isn't the sort of thing one talks of in private. I simply want my cigarette case back.
Yes, but this is not your cigarette case. This cigarette case is a gift from someone of the name of Cecily. You said you didn't know anyone of that name.
Well, if you must know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt.
Yes, and a charming old lady she is too. Lives at Tunbridge Wells. Just give it back to me,
But
auntie.
why does your aunt call herself Little Cecily? From Little Cecily with the fondest love.
What on earth is there in that? Some aunts are tall and some aunts are not tall. That is the sort of thing an aunt may decide for herself. You seem to think that every aunt should be exactly like your aunt. That is absurd. For heaven's sake, just give me back my cigarette.
But why does she call you her uncle? From Little Cecily with her fondest love to dear Uncle Jack. There is no objection, I admit, in an aunt being a small aunt. But why an aunt, no matter her size, should call her own nephew her uncle, I can't quite figure out. Besides, your name isn't Jack at all, it's Earnest.
Well, it isn't Ernest, it's Jack.
You have always told me it was Earnest. I've introduced you to everyone as Earnest. You answer to the name of Ernest. You look as if your name was Ernest. You're the most earnest-looking person I ever saw. It's very absurd you're saying your name isn't Ernest. On your cards, look, here's one of them. Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4, the Albany, and I'll keep this as proof your name is Ernest if you ever try to deny it to me, or to Gwendolen, or to anyone else.
Well, my name is Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Well, that does
And
not...
that cigarette case was given to me in the country.
And that does not explain why your small aunt Cecily, who lives at Tunbridge Wells, calls you her uncle. Come on, boy, it's best to have the whole thing out at once.
My dear fellow, you talk exactly as if you were a dentist. It's very vulgar to speak if one were a dentist when one isn't a dentist. It produces a false impression.
My dear fellow, that is what dentists always do. Now, come on, tell me the whole story. And I may mention I've always suspected you of being a confirmed and secret bumbriest, and I'm quite sure of it now.
Bumbriest, what on earth do you mean?
I'll reveal to you the meaning of that incomparable phrase as soon as you are kind enough to reveal to me why you are Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Well, produce my cigarette case first.
Here it is. Now produce your explanation, and pray, make it an improbable one.
My dear fellow, there is nothing improbable about my explanation. It is, in fact, quite ordinary. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a young boy, made me in his will guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who calls me uncle for motives of respect that you can't possibly appreciate, lives at my place in the country with her admirable governess, Miss Prism.
Where is that place in the country, by the way?
That is nothing to you, dear boy. You will not be invited. and I can speak quite candidly that it is not a trap.
I suspected that, old boy. I've bum-breed all across Shropshire on 2 separate occasions. Now go on, why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear Algy, you can't possibly appreciate my real motives. You are hardly serious enough. However, when one is placed in position of guardian, one has to assume a high moral tone on all subjects. And as a high moral tone can be hardly said to conduce much to one's health or one's happiness, in order to get up to town, I've always pretended to have a younger brother by the name of Earnest, who lives in the Albany and gets in the most serious of scrapes. Now that, dear Algy, is the whole truth, pure and simple.
Oh, the truth is rarely pure and never simple. Modern life would be very tedious if it were either. And modern literature, a complete impossibility.
And not a bad thing either.
Literary criticism is not your forte. Don't try it. Leave that to people who have not been at university. They do it so well in the daily papers. What you really are is a bumbriest. I was quite right in calling you a bumbriest. You are one of the most advanced bumbriasts I know.
Now, what do you mean by a bumbriest?
You have invented a very useful younger brother in order that you may be able to come up to town as often as you like. I have invented an invaluable permanent invalid called Bunbury in order that I may be able to go down into the country whenever I choose. Bunbury is perfectly invaluable. If it were not for Bunbury's extraordinary bad health, for instance, I wouldn't be able to dine with you tonight at Willis's, for I've really been engaged to Aunt Augusta for over a week.
I haven't invited you to dine with me anywhere tonight.
I know. It is absurdly careless of you. You never send out invitations. It's very foolish. Nothing annoys people more than not receiving invitations.
You had much better dine with your Aunt Augusta.
I haven't the slightest intention of doing anything of the kind. To begin with, I dine there already on Monday, and once a week is quite enough to dine with one's own relations. In the second place, every time I do dine there, I'm treated as a member of the family, and either sat down with no women or with 2. In the third place, I know perfectly well who she will place me next to tonight. She will place me next to Mary Farquhar, who always flirts with her own husband across the table. That is not very pleasant. Indeed, it is not even decent, and that sort of thing is tremendously on the increase. The amount of women in London who flirt with their own husbands is scandalous. It looks so bad. And it's merely washing one's clean linen in public. Besides, now that I know you to be a confirmed bumbriest, I naturally want to talk to you about it. I want to tell you the rules.
I am not a bumbriest at all. If Gwendolen accepts me, I'm going to kill my brother. I think I'll kill him at any rate. Cecily is a little too much interested in him. It's rather a bore. So I'm going to get rid of my brother Ernest, and I strongly advise you to do the same with with your friend with your certain name.
Nothing will induce me to part with Bunbury. And if you ever get married, which seems to me extremely problematic, you'll be glad to know Bunbury. A man who marries without knowing Bunbury has a very tedious time of it.
If I marry a charming girl like Gwendolen, and she is the only girl that I ever saw that I would marry, I will certainly not want to know Bunbury.
No, then your wife will. You don't seem to realize that in married life, 3 is company and 2 is none.
That's the theory the corrupt French drama has been propounding for the last 50 years.
Yes, and that the happy English home is proved in half the time.
Don't be cynical. It's perfectly easy to be cynical.
It isn't easy to be anything nowadays. There's such beastly competition about. And that must be Aunt Augusta. Only relatives and creditors ever ring in that Wagnerian manner. Now, if I get her out of the room for 10 minutes in order that you may be able to have the opportunity of proposing to Gwendolen, then I dine with you tonight at Willis's.
I suppose so if you want.
Well, yes, but you must be serious about it. I hate people who are not serious about meals. It is so shallow of them.
Lady Bracknell and Ms. Fairfax.
Good afternoon, Algernon. I hope you are behaving very well.
Thank you, I'm feeling very well.
Oh, but that is not quite the same thing. In fact, the two rarely go together.
Oh, dear me, you are smart.
I am always smart, aren't I, Mr. Worthing?
You're quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh? I hope I am not that. It would leave no room for developments, and I intend to develop in many directions.
I'm sorry if we are a little late, Algernon. I've just been to visit Lady Harbury. I haven't been to see her since her poor husband's death, and I have never seen a woman so altered. She looks quite 20 years younger. And now I'll have a cup of tea and one of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta.
Gwendolen, you will come sit by me.
Thanks, Mama. I'm quite comfortable where I am.
Good heavens, Lane! Why are there no cucumber sandwiches? I ordered them specially.
There were no cucumbers at the market this morning, sir. I went down twice.
No cucumbers?
No, sir. Not even for ready money.
Thank you, Lane, that'll do.
Thank you, sir.
I'm greatly distressed, Aunt Augusta. There be no cucumbers, not even for ready money.
It really makes no matter, Algernon. I had some crumpets with Lady Harbury, who seems to me to be living entirely for pleasure.
I hear that her hair has turned quite gold from grief.
It certainly has changed colour, although from what cause I of course cannot say. Thank you, Algernon. I've got quite a treat for you tonight. I'm going to set you down with Mary Farquhar. She is such a nice woman and so attentive to her husband. It is a delight to watch them.
I'm afraid, Aunt Augusta, I shall have to give up on the pleasure of dining with you tonight after all.
No, that would put my table completely out. Your poor uncle would have to dine upstairs. Fortunately, he is used to that.
It is a great bore, and I need hardly say a terrible disappointment. But the fact is, I've just received a telegram to say that my poor friend Bunbury is ill again. They seem to think I should be with him.
It is strange. This Mr. Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously bad health.
Oh yes, poor Bunbury is a dreadful invalid.
Well, I must say that this Mr. Bunbury should make up his mind whether he was going to live or die. This shilly-shallying with the question is absurd. Nor do I approve in any way the modern sympathies with invalids. I consider it morbid. Health is the primary duty of life. I'm always telling this to your poor uncle, but he never seems to take much notice as far as any improvements in his health goes. I would be much obliged if you would ask Mr. Bunbury from me to be kind enough not to have a relapse on Saturday, for I rely on you to arrange my music for me. It is my last reception, and one wants something that will encourage conversation, particularly as it is the end of the season, and everyone has said practically everything they had to say, which was probably not much.
Well, I'll speak to Bunbury, Aunt Augusta, if he's still conscious. And I think I can promise that he'll be all right by Saturday.
Excellent.
Of course, the music is a great difficulty. You see, if one plays good music, people don't listen. And if one plays bad music, people don't talk. But I'll run over the program that I've drawn up for you if you'll kindly join me for a moment in the next room.
Oh, thank you, Algernon. It is very thoughtful of you. I'm sure the program will be delightful after a few expurgations. French songs I cannot possibly allow. People seem to think it improper and either look shocked, which is vulgar, or laugh, which is worse. German, though, seems to me to be a thoroughly proper language, and I believe it is so. Gwendolen, you will accompany me?
Certainly, Mama.
Charming day it's been, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, pray don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I feel quite certain that they mean something else, and that makes me so nervous.
I do mean something else.
I thought so. In fact, I am never wrong.
I would like to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
I would certainly advise you to do so. Mama has a way of coming back suddenly to a room that I have often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I met you, I've admired you more than any girl that I've ever met since I met you.
Yes, I am quite aware of the fact. And I often wish that in public at any rate you had been more demonstrative. For me, you have always had an irresistible fascination. Even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals. And my idea has always been to love someone of the name of Earnest. There is something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. From the moment Algernon first mentioned to me he had a friend called Earnest, I knew I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendolen?
Passionately.
Darling, you don't know how happy you've made me.
My own Earnest.
But you don't mean to say that you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Earnest, do you?
But your name is Earnest.
Yes, I know, but supposing it was something else, do you mean to say you couldn't love me then?
Ah, that is clearly a metaphysical speculation, and like most metaphysical speculations, has very little reference at all to the actual facts of real life as we know them.
Well, personally, darling, I don't much care for the name of Earnest. I don't think it suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It is a divine name. It has a music of its own. It produces vibrations.
Well, I think there are other much nicer names out there. I think Jack, for instance, a charming name.
Jack? No. There is very little music in the name Jack, if any at all indeed.
It does not thrill. It produces absolutely no vibrations.
I have known several Jacks, and they all without exception were more than usually plain. Besides, Jack is notorious domesticity for John. And I pity any woman who is married to a man called John. She would probably never be allowed to know the entrancing pleasure of a single moment's solitude. The only really safe name is Earnest.
Gwendolen, I must get christened at once. I mean, we must get married at once. There's no time to lose.
Married, Mr. Worthing.
Yes, you know that I love you. You led me to believe that you are not absolutely indifferent to me.
I adore you. But you have not proposed to me yet. Nothing
Has been said at all about marriage. The subject has not even been touched on.
Well, may I propose to you now?
I think it would be an admirable opportunity. And just to spare you any possible disappointment, Mr. Worthing, I think it only fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I am fully determined to accept you.
Gwendolen.
Yes, Mr. Worthing. What is it you've got to say to me?
You know what I've got to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolen, will you marry me?
Of course I will, darling. How long you've been about it. I'm afraid you've had very little experience in how to propose.
Oh, but my own one, I've never loved anyone but you.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. I know my brother Gerald does. All my girlfriends tell me so. What wonderfully blue eyes you have, Ernest. They are quite blue. I hope you will always look at me just like that, especially when there are other people present.
Gwendolen! Mr. Worthing, kindly rise from this semi-recumbent posture. It is most indecorous.
Mamma, I must beg you to retire. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing is not quite finished yet.
Finished? What, may I ask?
I am engaged to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Pardon me. You are not engaged to anyone. When you do become engaged, it will be I, or your father, should his health permit him, that will inform you of the fact. An engagement should come on a young girl as a surprise, pleasant or unpleasant, as the case may be. It is hardly something for a young girl to decide for herself. And now I have a few questions to put to Mr. Worthing, and while I am making these inquiries, you will wait for me below in the carriage.
Mamma!
The carriage, Gwendolen. Gwendolen, the carriage.
Yes, Mamma.
You may take a seat, Mr. Worthing.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. I prefer standing.
I do feel bound to tell you that you are not on the list of eligible young men that I share with the dear Duchess of Bolton. We work together, you know. However, I am quite ready to add your name should your answers prove what a really affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
I must admit that I do smoke.
I'm pleased to hear it. A man should always have an occupation of some kind. There are far too many idle men in London as it is. How old are you?
29.
A very good age to be married. And I have always been of the opinion that a man who wishes to be married should know either everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I'm very pleased to hear it. I detest anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate exotic fruit. You touch it and the bloom is gone. Fortunately for us, the educational system in London produces absolutely nothing whatsoever, really. If it did, it would be disastrous for the upper classes. There would be uprisings in Provo Square. What is your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
In land or investments?
In investments chiefly.
That is satisfactory. What between the duties expected of one during one's lifetime and those exacted of one after one's death, land has ceased to be either a profit or a pleasure. And that's all that can be said about land.
Well, I do own a country home, with some land attached to it, of course. About 1,500 acres, I believe. But I don't depend on that for my real income. The fact is, I believe the poachers are the only ones who get anything out of it.
A country house. How many bedrooms? Oh, that can be sorted out later. I do hope, though, that you have a town home. A girl with a simple, unspoilt nature like Gwendolen could hardly be expected to reside in the country.
Yes, I do own a home on Belgrave Square. It is led by the heir to Lady Bloxham, but I can get it back at 6 months' notice if I like.
Lady Bloxham?
Oh, yes.
I don't know her.
She goes out very little. She's a lady of advanced years.
That is no guarantee of respectability. What number, Belgrave Square?
149.
The unfashionable side. I knew there was something. However, that can be altered if necessary.
Do you mean the fashion or the side?
Both, I presume, if need be. What are your politics?
Well, I'm afraid I have none. I'm a liberal unionist.
Oh, those counter stories. They dine with us, or come in the evenings at any rate. Now, on to minor matters. Are your parents living?
I have lost both of my parents, Lady Bracknell.
To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as a misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. Who was your father? He was evidently a man of some wealth. Was he born in what the radical newspapers call the purple of commerce, or did he rise from the ranks of the aristocracy?
Well, I don't really know who I am by birth. I said I lost my parents. It'd be nearer the truth to say that my parents lost me. I was found.
Found?
Yes, the old Mr. Thomas Cardew, a gentleman of very charitable and kindly disposition, found me and gave me the name of Worthing because he had a first-class ticket in his pocket for Worthing at the time. Worthing is a place in Sussex. It's a seaside resort.
And where did this kindly charitable gentleman with a first-class ticket to a seaside resort find you?
In a handbag.
A handbag?
Yes, a somewhat large, brown leather handbag that had handles to it. An ordinary handbag, in fact.
And in what locality did this Mr. James or Thomas Cardew find this Ranford ordinary handbag?
In a cloakroom at Victoria Station. It was given him by mistake for his own.
A cloakroom at Victoria Station?
Yes, the Brighton line.
The line is immaterial, Mr. Worthing. I confess, I am somewhat confused by what you have just told me. To be born, or at any rate bred, in a handbag, whether it had handles or not, seems to me to display a contempt for the modern decencies of family life, which remind one of the worst excesses of the French Revolution. And I presume you know what that unfortunate movement led to. As for the particular locality of the handbag, a cloakroom at a railway station may serve to conceal some social indiscretion, but it could hardly be used as the basis for a respectable position in good society.
May I ask what I am to do then? I need hardly say that I would do anything to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
I would suggest that you acquire some relations as soon as possible. I would work hard to produce at any rate one parent of either sex before the season is quite over.
But I don't suppose I might go about doing that. I can...
All right, old boy. You don't mean to say that Gwendolen refused you? I know it is a way she has. She's always refusing people. I think it is very ill-natured of her.
No, Gwendolen is right as the trivet. As far as she is concerned, we are engaged. Her mother is perfectly unbearable. Never met such a gorgon. I don't even know what a gorgon is like, but Lady Bracknell is one. At any rate, she's a monster without being a myth, and that is rather unfair. No, I take your pun now. Again, shouldn't speak of your aunt in that way before you.
My dear boy, I love hearing my relations abused. That is the only thing that makes me put up with them at all. Relations are simply a tedious pack of people who haven't the remotest knowledge about how to live, nor the faintest instinct about when to die. It isn't.
Well, I won't argue the matter with you. You always want to argue about something.
My dear fellow, that is what things were originally made for.
If I thought that, I'd shoot myself. You don't suppose that there's any chance of Gwendolen becoming like her mother in about 150 years or so?
All women become like their mothers. That's their tragedy. No man does. That's his.
Was that clever?
Well, it's perfectly phrased and quite as true as any observation in civilized life should be.
I'm sick to death of cleverness. Everybody nowadays is clever. You can't go anywhere without meeting clever people. I wish to goodness we had a few fools left.
Oh, we have.
I should certainly like to meet them. What do they talk about?
What, the fools? Well, about the clever people, of course.
What fools?
Well, have you told Gwendolen the truth about your being Earnest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear fellow, the truth isn't the sort of thing one tells to a nice, sweet, refined girl like Gwendolen. What extraordinary ideas you have the way to behave to a woman.
The only way to behave to a woman is to make love to her, if she's pretty. And to someone else if she's plain.
That's nonsense.
It isn't. What about your brother, Ernest? What about the profligate?
I shall have got rid of him by the end of the week. I'll say he died in Paris of apoplexy. Lots of people die these days of apoplexy. Quite suddenly, don't they?
Yes, but it's hereditary, my dear fellow. It's the sort of thing that runs in families. You'd much better say a severe chill.
And you're sure that the severe chill isn't hereditary or anything of the sort?
Of course it isn't.
Very well then. My poor brother Ernest is carried off in Paris by a severe chill, and that gets rid of it.
Yes, but I thought you said that Miss Cardew was a little too much interested in your dear brother Ernest. Won't she feel his loss a great deal?
No, that's all right. Cecily is not a silly romantic, I'm glad to say. She goes for long walks, has got a capital appetite, and pays absolutely no attention to her lessons.
I should really like to see Cecily.
I shall take very good care that you don't. She's excessively pretty and only 18.
Have you told Gwendolen yet about your having an excessively pretty ward who is only just 18?
One doesn't just blurt these things out to people. And besides, Cecily and Gwendolen are certain to become great friends. I'll bet you anything you like that half an hour after meeting each other, they will be calling each other sister.
Women only do that when they've called each other a lot of other things first. Now, if we want to get a good seat at Willis's, we really must go and dress. You know it's nearly 7.
It is always nearly 7.
Yes, well, I'm hungry.
I never knew you when you weren't.
What shall we do after dinner? Shall we go to a theatre?
No, I loathe listening.
Well, let's go to a club.
No, I hate talking.
Well, we could trot round to the Empire at 10.
No, I can't stand looking at things. It's so silly.
Well, what shall we do?
Nothing.
Well, it's awfully hard work doing nothing. But I don't mind hard work as long as there is no definite object of any kind.
Ms. Fairfax.
Gwendolen, upon my word.
Algernon, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular to say to Mr. Logan.
Now, Gwendolen, I don't think I can allow this at all.
Do you always adopt a strictly moral attitude towards life? You are not quite old enough to do that.
My darling.
Ernest, we may never be married. From the expression on Mamma's face, I fear we never shall. Few parents nowadays pay any regard to what their children say to them. The old-fashioned respect for the young is fast dying out. Whatever influence I ever had over Mamma, I lost at the age of 3. But although she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and I may marry someone else and marry often, nothing that she can possibly do can alter my eternal devotion to you.
My dear Gwendolen.
The story of your romantic origin, as related to me by Mama with unpleasing comments, has naturally stirred the deeper fibers of my nature. Your Christian name has an irresistible fascination. The simplicity of your character makes you exquisitely incomprehensible to me. Your town address at the Albany I have. What is your address in the country?
The Manor House, Walton, Hertfordshire.
There is a good postal service, I suppose. It may be necessary to do something desperate. That, of course, will require serious consideration. I will communicate with you daily.
Oh, my own one.
How long do you remain in town?
Until Monday.
Good. Algie, you may turn round now.
Thanks, I've turned round already.
You may also ring the bell.
You will allow me to see you to your carriage, darling?
Certainly.
I will see Miss Fairfax out.
Yes, sir.
A glass of sherry, Lane.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow, Lane, I'm going Bunbury.
Yes,
I
sir.
shall probably not be back till Monday. You can put up my dress clothes, my smoking jacket, and all the Bunbury suits.
Yes, sir.
I hope tomorrow will be a fine day, Lane.
It never is, sir.
Lane, you are a perfect pessimist.
I do my best to give satisfaction, sir.
Now there's a sensible, intelligent girl. The only girl I've cared for in my life. What are you so amused at?
Oh, merely a little anxious about poor Bunbury's health, that's all.
If you're not careful, your friend Bunbury will get you into some serious scrape someday.
Oh, I love scrapes. They're the only thing that is never serious.
Algie, you never speak anything but nonsense.
No one ever does.
Cecily, surely the utilitarian occupation of watering your flowers is Moulton's duty rather than yours, especially when your intellectual pleasures await you. Your German grammar is on the table. Pray open it to page 15. We'll begin with yesterday's lesson.
But I don't like German. It isn't at all a becoming language. I know perfectly well I look quite plain after my German lesson.
Your guardian wants you to improve yourself in every way. He laid particular stress on your German when he was leaving for town. Indeed, he always lays particular stress on your German when he was leaving for town.
Dear Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes I think he is so serious that he cannot be quite well.
Your guardian enjoys the best of health, and his gravity of demeanor is to be especially commended in one so comparatively young as he is. I know no one who has a higher sense of duty and responsibility.
I suppose that is why he often looks a little bored when we three are together.
Cecily, I am surprised at you. Mr. Worthing has many troubles in his life. I will marry, and triviality would be out of place in his conversation. Indeed, he is very anxious about that unfortunate young man, his brother.
I wish he would allow that unfortunate young man, his brother, to come down here sometime. We might have a good influence over him, Miss Prism. I am sure you certainly would. You know German and geology and things of that kind influence a man very much.
I do not think I would be particularly fond of transforming a character that, according to his own brother's admission, is irretrievably weak and vacillating. Indeed, I do not desire to reclaim him. I am not fond of the modern mania of turning bad people into good people. As a man sows, so shall he reap. You must put away that diary, Cecily. I don't know why you carry a diary at all.
I keep a diary in order to enter the wonderful secrets of my life. If I did not write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
Memory, my dear Cecily. Memory is the diary that we all carry about with us.
Yes, but usually it chronicles things that have not happened, or couldn't possibly have happened. I believe that memory is responsible for nearly all the 3-volume novels that Muddy sends us.
Do not speak slightingly of the 3-volume novel. I wrote a novel in my younger days.
Did you really, Miss Prism? How wonderfully clever you are. I hope it did not end happily. I don't like novels that end happily. They depress me so much.
The good end happily, and the bad end unhappily. That is what fiction means.
I suppose so, but it seems very unfair. And was your novel ever published?
Alas, no. It was unfortunately abandoned. I use the word to mean lost or mislaid. To your work, child. These speculations are profitless.
Ah, but I see dear Dr. Chausble coming up through the garden.
Dr. Chausble, this is indeed a pleasure.
How are we this morning, Miss Prism? You are, I trust, well?
Ah, Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. I think it would do her so much good to take a short stroll with you in the park, Dr. Chausble.
Cecily, I never said anything about having a headache.
No, my dear Miss Prism, I know that, but I felt instinctively that you had a headache. Indeed, I was thinking about that and not about my German lesson when the rector came in.
I hope, Cecily, you're not inattentive.
Oh, I'm afraid I am.
That is strange. Were I fortunate enough to be Miss Prism's pupil, I would hang upon her lips. I spoke metaphorically. My metaphor was drawn from V's. Mr. Worthing, I suppose, has not returned from town yet.
We do not expect him until Monday afternoon.
Yes, he usually likes to spend his Sunday in London. He's not one of those whose sole aim is enjoyment, as by all accounts that unfortunate young man, his brother, seems to be. But I must not disturb Egeria and her pupil any longer.
Egeria, my name is Letitia, Doctor.
It's a classical illusion merely, drawn from the pagan authors. I shall see you both, no doubt, at evensong.
I think, dear Doctor, I shall take a stroll with you after all. I feel a slight headache coming on, and a walk might do it good.
With pleasure, Miss Prism, with pleasure. We might go as far as the schools and back.
That would be delightful. Cecily, you shall do your political economy in my absence. The chapter on the fall of Ruti, you may admit. It is a bit too sensational. Even the metallic problems have their melodramatic sides.
Horrid political economy. Horrid geography. Horrid German.
Miss Cardew, Mr. Worthing has just driven over from the station. He's brought his luggage with him.
Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4 the Albany W. Uncle Jack's brother. Did you tell him Mr. Worthing was in town?
Yes, miss, he seemed very much disappointed. I told him that you and Miss Prism were here in the garden. He told me he wanted to speak to you privately for a moment.
Okay. Ask Mr. Ernest Worthing to come here, and you'd better talk to the housekeeper about getting room for him.
Yes, miss.
I've never met any really wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. I'm so afraid he will look just like everyone else. He does.
You are my dear little cousin Cecily, I am sure.
You're under some strange mistake. I am not little. In fact, I believe I am more than usually tall for my age. But I am your cousin Cecily, and you, I see from your card, are Uncle Jack's brother, my cousin Ernest. My wicked cousin Ernest.
Oh, I am not wicked, cousin Cecily. You mustn't think of me as wicked.
Well, if you were not, then you have certainly been deceiving us all in a most inexcusable manner. I hope you have not been leading a double life, pretending to be wicked and being really good all the time. That would be hypocrisy.
Well, I have been rather reckless.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it.
In fact, now that you mention the subject, I really have been very bad in my own small way.
But I don't think you should be so proud of that, though I'm sure it must have been very pleasant.
It is much pleasanter being here with you.
But I can't imagine how you were here at all. Uncle Jack won't be back until Monday afternoon.
That is a disappointment. I am obliged to go up by the first train Monday morning. I have a very important business appointment that I am anxious to miss.
Couldn't you miss it anywhere but in London?
No, the appointment is in London.
Well, I know, of course, how important it is not to keep a business engagement if one wants to retain any sense of the beauty of life, but still, I think you had better wait until Uncle Jack arrives. I know he wants to speak to you about your emigrating.
About my what?
Your emigrating. He's gone up to buy your outfit.
Well, I certainly would not let Jack buy my outfit. He has no taste in neckties at all.
Well, I don't think you will require neckties. Uncle Jack is sending you to Australia.
Australia? I would sooner die.
Well, he said on Wednesday night at dinner that you would have to choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
Well, I'm afraid, Cousin Cecily, that the accounts I have received of Australia and the next world are not particularly encouraging. This world is good enough for me, Cousin Cecily.
Yes, but are you good enough for it?
I am not that, I'm afraid. And that is why I want you to reform me. You might make it your mission if you don't mind, Cousin Cecily.
I'm afraid I've no time this afternoon.
Well, would you mind my reforming myself this afternoon?
It would be rather quixotic of you, but I think you should try.
I will. I feel better already.
You are looking a little worse.
Well, that is because I'm hungry.
Oh, how thoughtless of me. I forgot that when one is going to lead an entirely new life, one requires regular and wholesome meals. Won't you come in?
Well, thank you. Might I have a buttonhole first? I never have any appetite unless I have a buttonhole first.
A Marche O'Neill?
Well, I'd sooner have a pink rose.
Why?
Because you are like a pink rose, Cousin Cecily.
I don't think it can be right for you to talk to me like that. Miss Prism never says such things to me.
Well, then Miss Prism is a short-sighted old lady. You're the prettiest girl I ever saw.
Miss Prism says all good looks are a snare.
Oh, they are a snare. One in which every sensible man would like to be caught.
I don't think I would care to catch a sensible man. I shouldn't know what to talk to him about.
You should get married. A misanthrope I could understand. A woman's rose never.
Believe me, I do not deserve so neologistic a phrase. The precept as well as the practice of the primitive church was distinctly against matrimony.
And that is exactly why the primitive church has not lasted until the present day. You do not seem to realize, dear doctor, that by persistently remaining single, a man reverts himself a permanent public temptation. Men should be more careful. This very celibacy is what leads and progresses astray.
But is a man not equally attractive when married?
No married man is ever attractive except to his wife.
Often I've been told, not even to her.
That depends on the intellectual sympathies of the woman. Maturity can be depended on. Ripeness can be trusted. Younger women are green. I meant horticulturally, of course. My metaphor was drawn from fruits. But where is Cecily?
Perhaps she followed us to the schools.
Mr. Worthing.
Mr. Worthing?
This is indeed a surprise. We did not expect you until Monday afternoon.
I have returned sooner than I expected. Dr. Chausble, I hope you're well.
Yes, fine. Mr. Worthing, I trust this garb of woe does not betoken some terrible calamity.
My brother.
More shameful deaths and extravagance.
Still leading his life of pleasure.
Dead.
Earnest? Dead?
Quite dead.
What a lesson for him. I trust you will profit by it.
Mr. Worthing, I offer you my sincere condolence. You have at least the consolation of knowing that you were always the most generous and forgiving of brothers.
Poor Ernest. He had his faults, but this is a sad blow.
Yes, very sad indeed. Were you with him at the end?
No, he died abroad in Paris. I had a telegram from the manager of the Grand Hotel last night.
Was the cause of death mentioned?
A severe chill, it seems.
As a man sows, so shall we reap.
Charity, Miss Prism, charity. None of us is perfect. I myself am peculiarly susceptible to drafts. Will the interment take place here?
No, he seemed to have expressed a desire to be married in Paris.
In Paris! I fear that hardly points to any serious state of mind at the last. You would no doubt wish me to make some slight allusion to this tragic domestic affliction next Sunday. My sermon on the meaning of the manna in the wilderness can be adapted to almost any occasion, joyful, or, as in this present case, distressing. I have preached it at harvest celebrations, christenings, confirmations, days of humiliation, and festal days. The last time I delivered it was in the cathedral. Yes, it was a charity sermon on behalf of the Society for the Prevention of Discontent among the Upper Orders. The bishop, he was present. He was most struck by some of the analogies that I drew.
That reminds me, Dr. Chausble, you mentioned christenings, I think. You do know how to christen all right, don't you? I mean, you are constantly christening around here.
That is one of the rector's most constant duties in the parish. I have often spoken to the poor classes on the subject, but they don't seem to know what thrift means.
But is there a particular infant in whom you are interested in, Mr. Worthing? Your brother was, I believe, unmarried, was he not?
Oh, yes.
People who live entirely for pleasure usually are.
No, it isn't for any child, dear Doc. No, I'm quite fond of children. The fact is, I would like to be christened myself this afternoon if you have nothing better to do.
But surely you have been christened already.
Well, I don't remember anything about it.
Have you any grave doubts on the subject?
I certainly intend to have. Of course, that is if you don't have any problem with the matter at all, or if you think I'm a little too old now.
No, not at all. The sprinkling and even the immersion of adults is a perfectly canonical practice.
Immersion?
Yes, the immersion. Well, you need to have no apprehensions. Sprinkling is all that is necessary, or indeed, I think advisable. Our weather is so changeable. But at what hour would you wish the ceremony performed?
Oh, I might trot round about 5 if that would suit you.
Yes, perfectly. Perfectly. In fact, I had 2 similar ceremonies to perform at that time. A case of twins that occurred recently in one of the outlying cottages on your own estate. And poor Jenkins, the carter, a most hard-working man.
No, I don't see much fun in being christened alongside babies. That would be childish. Would 5:30 do?
Yes, admirably, admirably. But now, dear Mr. Worthing, I will not intrude any longer into a house of sorrow. I would merely beg you not to be too much bowed down with grief. What seems to us bitter trials are often blessings in disguise.
This seems to me to be a blessing of an extremely obvious kind.
Uncle Jack? Oh, I'm glad to see you back. But what horrid clothes you've got on. Do go and change them.
Child!
What is the matter, Uncle Jack? Do you look happy? You look as though you've got a toothache. And I've got such a surprise for you. Who do you think is in the dining room? Your brother.
Who?
Your brother, Earnest. He arrived about half an hour ago.
What's nonsense? I haven't got a brother.
Oh, don't say that. No matter how badly he may behave to you in the past, he is still your brother, and you couldn't be so heartless as to disown him. I'll tell him to come out, and you will shake hands with him, won't you, Uncle Jack?
These are very joyful tidings.
After we have all been resigned to his loss, this seems to me to be particularly distressing.
My brother in the dining room? That seems perfectly absurd. No, good heavens.
Brother John, I've come down from town to tell you that I am very sorry about all the trouble I've caused you, and I hope to lead a better life in future.
Uncle Jack, I'm not going to hold your own brother's hand.
Nothing will induce me to take his hand. I think he's coming down here despicable, and he knows perfectly well why.
Uncle Jack, do be nice. There is some good in everyone, and Earnest has just been telling me all about his poor invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, whom he goes to visit. Surely there must be much good in one who is kind to an invalid and leaves the pleasures of London to sit by a bed of pain.
Bunbury. He's been speaking to you about Bunbury, has he?
But yes, he's told me all about poor Mr. Bunbury and his terrible state of health.
Well, I won't have him speak to you about Bunbury, or about anything else. It is enough to drive one perfectly frantic.
Of course, I admit that the faults are all on my side. But I must say, Brother John's coldness to me seems peculiarly painful. I expected a more enthusiastic welcome, especially considering it is the first time I have come here.
Uncle Jack, if you do not shake hands with Ernest, I will never forgive you.
Never forgive me?
Never, never, never.
Well, this is the last time I shall ever do it.
It's pleasant, is it not, to see such perfect a reconciliation? I think we might leave the two brothers together.
Yeah, Cecily, come with us.
Certainly, Miss Prism. My little task of reconciliation is over.
We have done a beautiful action today, dear child.
But we must not be too premature in our judgments.
I feel very happy.
Young scoundrel, Algie, you must get out of here at once. I don't allow any bunburying here.
I put Mr. Earnest things in the room next to yours, so I suppose that's all right.
What?
Mr. Earnest's luggage, sir. I've unpacked it and placed it in the room next to your own.
His luggage?
Yes, sir. 3 portmanteaus, a dressing case, 2 hat boxes, and a large luncheon basket.
I'm afraid I can't stay more than a week this time.
Merriman, order the dog cart at once. Mr. Earnest has suddenly been called back to town.
Well, yes, sir?
What a fearful liar you are, Jack. I've not been called back to town at all.
Yes, you have.
But I haven't heard anyone call me.
Your duty as a gentleman calls
My
me back.
duty as a gentleman has never stood in the way of my pleasures to the slightest degree.
I can quite understand that.
Well, Cecily is a darling.
I will not have you speak of Miss Cardew like that. I don't like it.
Well, I don't like your clothes. You're perfectly ridiculous in them. Why on earth don't you go up and change? It's perfectly childish to be in deep mourning over a man who has actually stayed with you for a whole week. I call it grotesque.
You are not staying with me for a whole week, or as guest, or as anything else. You've got to get out of here as soon as possible. By the 4:05 train.
Well, I certainly will not leave you so long as you are in mourning. It would be quite unfriendly. If I were in mourning, you'd stay with me, I suppose. I'd think it quite unkind if you didn't.
Well, will you go if I change my clothes?
Yes, if you're not too long about it. I never saw anyone take so long to dress with so little result.
Well, that is better than always being overdressed as you always
If
are.
I am occasionally a little overdressed, I make up for it by being always immensely overeducated.
Your vanity is ridiculous. Your conduct an outrage, and your presence in my garden utterly absurd. However, you've got to catch the 4:05 train, and I hope you have a pleasant journey back to town. This bunburying, as you call it, has not been very successful.
Life, it has been a great success. I am in love with Cecily, and that is everything. But I must see her again before I go to arrange for another Bunbury. Look, there she is.
Oh, I merely came back to water the roses.
Oh.
I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
And he's gone to fetch the dog cart for me.
Oh, is he going to take you for a nice drive?
He's going to send me away.
Then have we got to part?
I'm afraid so. It is a very painful parting.
Well, it is always painful to part from people whom one has known for a very short space of time. The absence of old friends one can endure with equanimity, but a momentary separation from anyone to whom one has just been introduced is almost unbearable.
Thank you.
The dog cart is at the door, sir.
It can wait, Merriman, for 5 minutes.
Yes, miss.
Cecily, I hope I will not offend you if I state quite frankly and openly that you seem to me to be in every way the visible personification of absolute perfection.
I think your frankness does you great credit, Ernest. In fact, if you will allow me, I would like to copy your remarks into my diary.
Do you really keep a diary? I'd give anything to look at it. May I?
Oh, no. You see, it is simply a very young girl's record of her thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. When it appears in volume form, I hope you will order a copy. But pray, Ernest, don't stop. I delight in taking down from dictation. I have reached absolute perfection. You may go on. I'm quite ready for more.
Cecily, Ever since I first looked upon your wonderful and incomparable beauty, I have dared to love you wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly.
I don't think you should say that you love me wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly. Hopelessly doesn't seem to make much sense.
Oh, Cecily!
Your car is waiting, sir.
Tell her to come round next week at the same hour.
Yes, sir.
Uncle Jack would be very much annoyed to know that you were staying on till next to get the same.
I don't care about Jack. I don't care about anyone in the whole world but you. I love you, Cecily. You will marry me, won't you?
You silly boy, of course. Why, we've been engaged for the last 3 months.
The last 3 months?
Yes. It'll be exactly 3 months on Thursday.
Oh. But how did we become engaged?
Well, ever since Uncle Jack first confessed that he had a younger brother who was very wicked and bad, you, of course, formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and his Prism. And, of course, a man who is much talked about always becomes very attractive. One feels there must be something in him after all. I dare say it was foolish of me, but I fell in love with you, Earnest.
Darling. And when was the engagement actually settled?
On the 14th of February last. Worn out by your entire ignorance of my existence, I determined to end the matter one way or the other. After a long struggle with myself, I accepted you on this very bench. The next day, I went out and bought this little ring in your name. And this is the bangle with the true lover's knot that I promised you always to wear.
Oh, did I give you this? Very pretty, isn't it?
Yes, you've got wonderfully good taste, Canon. It's the excuse I've always given for your leading such a bad life. And this is the box in which I keep all your dear letters.
My letters? But my own sweet Cecily, I've never written you any letters.
Oh, you need hardly remind me of that, Earnest. I remember only too well that I was forced to write them for you. I wrote always 3 times a week, and sometimes often.
Oh, do let me look at them, won't you, Cecily?
Oh, couldn't possibly. They would make you far too conceited. The 3 that you wrote me after I had broken off our engagement are so beautiful and so badly spelled. Even now, I can hardly read them without crying a little.
Was our engagement ever broken off?
Oh, yes, on the 22nd of last March. You can read the entry here, if you like. Today, I broke off my engagement with Earnest. I feel it is better to do so. The weather still continues charming.
Why on earth did you break it off? What had I done? I have done nothing at all. Cecily, I'm very much hurt indeed to hear you broke it off. Particularly when the weather was so charming.
Well, it would hardly have been a really serious engagement if it hadn't been broken off at least once. But I forgave you before the week was out.
What a perfect angel you are!
My dear romantic boy. Ow, I hope your hair curls naturally, does it?
Yes, darling. With a little help from others.
I'm so glad.
You'll never break off our engagement again, Cecily.
Oh, I don't think I could now that I've actually met you. Besides, of course, there is the question of your name.
Yes, of course.
You must not laugh at me, darling, but it has always been a girlish dream of mine to love someone whose name is Earnest. There is something in that name that seems to inspire absolute confidence. I pity any poor married woman whose husband is not called Earnest.
My dear child, do you mean to say that you could not love me if I had some other name?
But what name?
Oh, any name you like. Algernon, for instance.
I don't like the name of Algernon.
Oh. My own sweet, loving little darling. I really can't see why you should object to the name of Algernon. It's not at all a bad name. In fact, it's rather an aristocratic name. Half the chaps that get down in the bankruptcy court are called Algernon. Seriously, Cecily, if my name were Algie, couldn't you love me?
I might respect you, Ernest. I might admire your character, but I'm afraid I could not give you my undivided attention.
Well, Cecily, your rector here is, I suppose, thoroughly experienced in all the practices of the rites and ceremonials of the church.
Oh yes, Dr. Chausble is a most learned man. He's never written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
I must see him at once on a very important christening. I mean, on very important business.
Oh.
I won't be away more than half an hour.
Considering that we have been engaged since February the 14th, and that I only met you today for the first time, it seems rather hard that you should leave me for so long a period as half an hour. Couldn't you make it 20 minutes?
I shall be back in no time.
What an impetuous boy he is. I like his hair so much. I must enter his proposal into my diary.
Miss Cardew, Miss Fairfax has just called to see Mr. Worthing. On very important business, Miss Fairfax states.
What is it, Mr. Worthing, in his library?
Mr. Worthing went off in the direction of the rectory some time ago.
Well, pray ask the lady to come here. Mr. Worthing is sure to be back soon, and you can bring tea.
Yes, miss.
Miss Fairfax. I suppose one of the many good elderly women who are associated with Uncle Jack and some of his philanthropic work in London. I don't quite like women who are associated with philanthropic work. It is so forward of them.
Miss Fairfax.
Pray, let me introduce myself. My name is Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew. What a very sweet name. Something tells me we are going to be great friends. I like you already more than I can say. My first impressions of people are never wrong.
How nice of you to like me so much after we have known each other such a short time. Won't you sit?
I may call you Cecily, may I not?
With pleasure.
And you will always call me Gwendolen, won't you?
If you wish.
Then that is all quite settled, is it not?
I hope so.
Perhaps this may be a favourable opportunity of my mentioning who I am. My father is Lord Bracknell. Well, you've never heard of Papa, I suppose?
I don't think so.
Outside the family circle, Papa, I am glad to say, is entirely unknown. I think that is quite as it should be. The home seems to me to be the proper sphere for the man, and certainly once a man begins to neglect his domestic duties, he becomes painfully effeminate, does he not? I don't like that. It makes men so very attractive. Cecily, Mama, whose views on education are remarkably strict, has brought me up to be extremely short-sighted. It is part of her system, so do you mind if I looking at you through my glasses?
Oh, not at all, Gwendolen. I'm rather fond of being looked at.
You are here on a short visit, I suppose.
Oh, no, I live here.
Really? Well, your mother, no doubt, or some female relative of advanced years resides here also?
No, I have no mother, nor in fact any relations.
Indeed.
My dear guardian, with the assistance of Miss Prism, has the arduous task of looking after me.
Your guardian?
Yes, I am Mr. Worthing's ward.
Oh. It is strange you never mentioned to me he had a ward. How secretive of him. He grows more interesting hourly. I'm not sure, however, that this news inspires me with feelings of unmixed delight. I am very fond of you, Cecily. I've liked you ever since I met you. But I am bound to state that now that I know you are Mr. Worthing's ward, I cannot help but express a wish that you were, well, just a little older than you seem to be, and not so very alluring in appearance. In fact, if I may speak candidly...
Pray do. I find that whenever anyone has anything unpleasant to say, they should always be quite candid.
But speak with perfect candor, Cecily. I wish you were fully 42 and more than usually plain for your age. Ernest has a strong, upright nature. He is the very soul of truth and honor. Disloyalty would be as impossible to him as deception. But even men, the noblest possible moral character, are extremely susceptible to the influence of the physical charms of others. Modern, no less ancient history supplies us with many most painful examples of what I refer to. If it were not so, indeed, history would be quite unreadable.
I beg your pardon. Gwendolen, did you say Earnest?
Yes.
Oh, well, it is not Mr. Earnest Worthing who is my guardian. It is his brother, his elder brother.
Ernest never mentioned to me he had a brother.
Well, I'm sorry to say they have not been on good terms for a long time.
Ah, that accounts for it. And now that I think of it, I've never heard any man mention his brother. The subject seems distasteful to most men. Cecily, you have lifted a load from my mind. I was growing almost anxious. It would have been terrible if any cloud had come across a friendship like ours, would it not? Of course, you are quite sure that it is not Mr. Earnest Worthing who is your guardian.
Quite sure. In fact, I am to be his.
I beg your pardon?
My dearest Gwendolen, I see no reason to make a secret of it to you. Our little county newspaper is sure to chronicle the fact within the week. Mr. Ernest Worthing and I are engaged to be married.
My darling Cecily, I think there must be some slight error. Mr. Ernest Worthing is engaged to me. The announcement will appear in the Morning Post on Saturday at the latest.
I'm afraid there must be some misconception. Ernest proposed to me exactly 10 minutes ago.
Well, it is certainly very curious, for he asked me to be his wife yesterday afternoon at 5:30. If you care to verify the incident, pray, do so. I never travel without my diary. One should always have something sensational to read in the train. I am so sorry, dear Cecily, if it is any disappointment to you, but I'm afraid I have the prior claim.
It would distress me more than I can say, my dearest Gwendolen, to cause you any mental or physical anguish, but I feel bound to point out that since Ernest proposed to you, he clearly has changed his mind.
If the poor fellow has been entrapped into any foolish promise, I shall consider it my duty to rescue him at once, and with a firm hand.
Whatever unfortunate entanglement my dear boy may have gotten himself into, I shall never reproach him with it after we are married.
You allude to me, Miss Cardew, as an entanglement. You are presumptuous. On an occasion of this kind, it becomes more than a moral duty to speak one's mind. It becomes a pleasure.
Do you suggest, Miss Fairfax, that I entrapped Ernest into an engagement? How dare you! This is no time for wearing the shallow mask of manners. When I see a spade, I call it a spade.
I am glad to say I've never seen a spade. It is obvious that our social spheres have been widely different.
Shall I lay the tea here as usual, miss?
Yes, as usual.
Are there many interesting walks in the vicinity, Miss Cardew?
Oh yes, a great many. From the top of one of the hills quite close, one can see 5 counties.
5 counties! I don't think I should like that. I hate crowds.
I suppose that is why you live in town?
Quite a well-kept garden this is, Miss Cardew.
So glad you like it, Miss Fairfax.
I had no idea there were any flowers in the country.
Oh yes, flowers are as common here as people are in London.
Personally, I cannot understand how anybody manages to exist in the country if anybody who is anybody does. The country always bores me to death.
I believe that is what the newspapers are calling an agricultural depression, is it not? I believe the aristocracy are suffering from it very much just at present. It is almost an epidemic among them. Can I offer you some tea, Miss Fairfax?
Thank you. Detestable girl, but I require tea.
Sugar?
No, thank you. Sugar is not fashionable anymore.
Cake or bread and butter?
Bread and butter, please. Cake is rarely seen at the best houses nowadays.
How's that, Miss Fairfax?
Yes, miss.
You have filled my tea with lumps of sugar. Though I asked most distinctly for bread and butter, you have given me cake. I am known for the gentleness of my disposition and the extraordinary sweetness of my nature. But I warn you, Miss Cardew, you may go too far.
To save my poor, innocent, trusting boy from the machinations of any other girl, there are no lengths to which I would not go.
From the moment I saw you, I distrusted you. I felt you were false, and I am never deceived in such matters. My first impressions of people are invariably right.
It seems to me, Miss Fairfax, that I have trespassed on your valuable time. No doubt you have several other calls of a similar character to make in the neighborhood.
Gwendolen! A moment. May I ask if you are engaged and married to this young lady?
Dear little Cecily, why, of course not. What would have put such an idea in your pretty little head?
Thank you. You may.
I knew there was some mistake. The gentleman whose arm is at present around your waist is my dear guardian, Mr. John Worthing.
I beg your pardon?
This is Uncle Jack.
Jack?
Here is Ernest.
My love.
May I ask, are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
To what young lady? Good heavens, Gwendolen!
Yes, to good heavens, I mean Gwendolen.
Of course not. What could have put such an idea into your pretty little head?
Thank you. You may.
I felt there must be some slight error, Miss Cardew. The gentleman who's now embracing you is my cousin, Mr. Algernon Moncrieff.
Algernon Moncrieff? Are you really called Algernon?
I cannot deny it.
Is your name really John?
I could deny it if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked. But my name certainly is John, and it has been John for years.
A gross deception has been practiced on us both.
My poor wounded Cecily.
My sweet wronged Gwendolen.
You will call me sister, will you not?
There was just one question I would like to be allowed to ask my guardian.
An admirable idea. Mr. Worthing, there's just one question I'd like to be permitted to put to you. Where is your brother Ernest? We are both engaged to be married to your brother Ernest. So it is a matter of some importance for us to know where your brother Ernest is at present.
Gwendolen and Cecily, it pains me to be forced to speak the truth to you. It is the first time in my life that I have been reduced to such a painful position. And I'm quite inexperienced in doing anything of the kind. However, I will speak quite candidly that I have no brother Ernest. I have no brother at all. Never had a brother, and I certainly don't intend on having a brother.
No brother at all.
None.
Had you never a brother of any kind?
None. Never. Of any kind.
I'm afraid it is quite clear, Cecily, that neither of us is engaged to be married to anyone.
It is not a very pleasant position for a young girl to suddenly find herself in, is it?
Let us go into the house. They would hardly venture to come after us there.
No. Men are such cowards, aren't they?
This ghastly state of affairs is what you call bunburying, I suppose.
Yes. What a perfectly wonderful Bunbury it is, too. The most wonderful Bunbury I have ever had in my whole life.
Well, you've no right whatsoever to Bunbury here.
Well, that is absurd. One has a perfect right to Bunbury wherever one chooses. Every serious Bunburyist knows that.
A serious Bunburyist? Good heavens.
Well, one must be serious about something if one is to have any satisfaction in life. What on earth you were serious about, I haven't the remotest idea. About everything, I shouldn't wonder. You have the most absolutely trivial nature.
Well, the only satisfaction I have out of the whole of this ordeal is that your friend Bunbury is quite exploded. You can't go up to the country as often as you used to do, and that is a good thing.
Your poor brother is looking a little off colour, isn't he, dear Jack? You won't be able to disappear up to London quite so often as your wicked custom was, and not a bad thing either.
Well, as for your conduct towards Miss Cardew, I must say that you're taking in a sweet, simple, innocent girl like that is quite inexcusable, to say nothing of the fact that she is my ward.
I can think of no possible defense for your deceiving a brilliant, clever, thoroughly experienced young woman like Miss Fairfax, to say nothing of the fact that she is my cousin.
I'm in love with Gwendolen. I only wanted to be engaged to her.
Well, I only wanted to be engaged to Cecily. I adore her.
There's certainly no chance of you and Miss Cardew ever getting married.
I don't think there is much chance of your and Miss Fairfax being united, dear Jack.
Well, that is no business of yours.
Well, if it was my business, I wouldn't talk about it. It's very vulgar to talk about one's own business. Only people like stockbrokers do that, and then only at dinner parties.
How can you calmly sit there eating muffins? When we're in such horrible trouble as this, I can't make out. You seem to be perfectly hot.
When I'm in trouble, eating is the only thing that consoles me. Indeed, when I'm in really great trouble, as anyone who knows me intimately will tell you, I refuse everything but food and drink. At the present moment, I'm eating muffins because I'm unhappy. Besides, I'm particularly fond of muffins.
Well, that's no reason why you should eat them all in that greedy way. That's my muffin.
I wish to eat tea cake. I don't like tea cake.
Kevin, the man made his own muffins in his own garden.
You've just said it's perfectly heartless to eat muffins.
No, I said it was perfectly heartless of you. Under the circumstances, that is an entirely different thing.
Well, yes, but the muffins are the same.
Algernon, why don't I wish to goodness you would go.
You cannot ask me to leave without having dinner first. That is absurd. I never go without my dinner. No one ever goes without dinner. Except vegetarians and people like that. Besides, I've just made arrangements with Dr. Chausble to be christened at 5:45 under the name of Earnest.
My dear fellow, the sooner you give up that nonsense, the better. For I made arrangements myself with Dr. Chausble this morning to be christened at 5:30. And I naturally will take the name of Ernest. Gwendolen would wish it. Now, we both can't be christened Ernest, but that's absurd. Besides, I've the perfect right to be christened if I'd like. You, I've never been christened. There's absolute evidence that I ever was, and I think it's very probable. And so does Dr. Chausble. Now, you, on the other hand, have been christened.
Well, yes, but I haven't been christened in years.
You have been christened, and that's the important.
Quite so. So I know my constitution can stand it. If you're not quite sure about your ever having been christened, I must say I think it rather dangerous you're venturing on it now. It might make you quite unwell. You can hardly have forgotten that someone very closely connected with you was very nearly carried off this week in Paris by a severe chill.
Yes, but you said yourself that a severe chill is not hereditary.
Well, yeah, it usedn't to be, I dare say, but I believe it is now. Science is always making wonderful improvements on things.
That's nonsense, Algernon. You never speak anything but nonsense.
Jack, you're at the muffins again. I wish you wouldn't. There are only 2 left, and I told you I'm particularly fond of muffins.
But I hate tea cake.
Well, then why on earth do you allow it to be served up to your guests? What ideas you have of hospitality.
Algernon, why don't you leave? I don't want you here. Why don't you go?
I haven't quite finished my tea yet. And there are still 2 muffins left.
The fact that they did not follow us at once into the house as anyone would have done seems to me to show they have some sense of shame left.
They have been eating muffins. That looks like repentance.
They don't seem to notice us at all. Couldn't you cough?
I'm having to cough.
They're looking at us. What effrontery.
Oh, so reproaching. That's very forward.
Let us preserve a dignified silence.
Certainly, it is the only thing to do now.
This dignified silence seems to produce an unpleasant effect.
Most distasteful one.
You will not be the first to speak.
Certainly not.
Mr. Worthing, I have something very particular to ask you. Much depends on your reply.
Your common sense is invaluable, Gwendolen. Mr. Moncrieff, kindly answer me the following question. Why did you pretend to be my guardian's brother?
In order that I may have had the opportunity of coming here and meeting you.
certainly seems a satisfactory explanation, does it not?
Yes, dear, if you can believe him.
I don't. But that does not change the wonderful beauty of his answer.
True, in matters of grave importance, style, not sincerity is the vital thing. Mr. Worthing, what explanation can you offer me for pretending to have a brother?
Well,
Was it in order that you might have an opportunity of coming up to town to see me as often as possible?
Can you doubt it, Miss Fairfax?
I have the gravest doubts upon the subject. But I intend to crush them. This is not the moment for German skepticism. Their explanations appear to be quite satisfactory, especially Mr. Worthing's. That seems to me to have the stamp of truth upon it.
I am more than content with what Mr. Moncrieff has said. His voice alone inspires one with absolute credulity.
Then you think I should forgive them?
Yes. I mean, no.
True. There are principles at stake that one cannot surrender. Which of us should tell them? The task is not a pleasant one.
Couldn't we both speak at the same time?
An excellent idea. I nearly always speak at the same time as other people. Will you take the time from me?
Certainly.
1, 2. Your Christian names are still an insuperable barrier. That is all.
Oh, Christian names? Is that all? But we were going to be christened this afternoon.
For my sake, you are prepared to do this terrible thing?
I am.
Please me, you are ready to face this fearful ordeal.
I am.
How absurd to talk of the equality of the sexes, where questions of self-sacrifice are concerned. Men are infinitely beyond us.
We are.
They have moments of physical courage about which we women know absolutely nothing.
Darling.
Darling. Ahem. Lady Bracknell.
Good heavens.
What does this mean?
Merely that I am engaged to be married to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Come here. Sit down at once. Hesitation of any kind is a sign of mental decay in the young and of physical weakness in the old. Apprised, sir, of my daughter's sudden flight by her trusty maid, whose confidence I purchased by a small coin, I have followed her at once by luggage train. Her unhappy father is, I am pleased to say, under the impression that she is at an unusually lengthy lecture, and I do not propose to undeceive him. Indeed, I have never undeceived him on any question. I would consider it wrong. You will understand, however, that all communication between yourself and my daughter is to cease immediately as of this instant. On this matter, as indeed on all matters, I am firm.
But I am engaged to be married to Gwendolen, Lady Bracknell.
You are nothing of the kind, sir. And now, as regards my nephew Algernon. Algernon!
Yes, Aunt Augusta.
Might I ask if it is in this residence that your friend Bunbury resides?
Bunbury? Oh, no. Bunbury is not here. Bunbury is elsewhere at present. In fact, Bunbury is dead.
His death must have been extremely sudden. When did Mr. Bunbury die?
I killed Miss Bunbury this afternoon. I mean, Bunbury died this afternoon.
And what did Bunbury die of?
Bunbury? Oh, he was quite exploded.
Exploded? Was he a victim of a terrorist outbreak? I had no idea Mr. Bunbury was in favour of social legislation. If so, he is well punished for his morbidity.
What I mean, Aunt Augusta, is that Bunbury was found out. The doctors found out that Bunbury could not live. That's what I mean, Aunt Augusta. And so, Bunbury died.
He seems to have had great confidence in his physician. However, I am glad that he made up his mind one way or the other at any rate and acted under proper medical advice. Now that we are rid of this Mr. Bunbury, might I ask, Mr. Worthing, who is this person whose hand my nephew Algernon is holding in what seems to me to be a thoroughly unnecessary manner?
That lady is Miss Cecily Cardew, my ward.
I'm engaged to Cecily, Aunt Augusta.
I beg your pardon.
Mr. Moncrieff and I are engaged to be married, Lady Bracknell.
I do not know whether there is anything peculiarly exciting about the air of this particular part of Hertfordshire. But it seems to me that the number of engagements going on here seems to be somewhat above the average that statistics has laid down for our guidance. I think that a preliminary inquiry on my part might not be out of place, Mr. Worthing. Is Miss Cardew connected with any of the major railway stations in London? You see, before yesterday, I had no idea that there were any persons or families whose origin was a terminus.
Miss Cecily Cardew is the granddaughter of the late Mr. Thomas Cardew of 149 Belgrave Square, SW, Gervase Park, Dorkings, Surrey, and the Sporran, Fifeshire, NB.
That sounds not unsatisfactory. 3 addresses always promotes confidence, even in tradesmen. But how can I be sure of their authenticity?
I have carefully preserved the court guides of the period. They are in this desk for your inspection, Lady Bracknell.
I have known strange errors in that publication.
Miss Cardew's family solicitors are Messrs. Markby, and Markby.
Markby and Markby, a firm of the very highest in their profession. Indeed, I am told that one of the Messrs. Markby is sometimes to be seen at dinner parties. Thus far, I am satisfied.
How very kind of you, Lady Bracknell. You will also be pleased to hear that I have in my possession certificates of Miss Cardew's birth, baptism, whooping cough, vaccination, registration, confirmation, and the measles, both the German and the English varieties.
A life crowded with incident, I see. Though perhaps somewhat too exciting for a young girl. I myself am not in favor of premature experiences. Come, Gwendolen, the time approaches for our departure. We haven't a moment to lose. Mr. Worthing, I might ask if Miss Cardew has any small fortune.
Oh, about £130,000 in the fund. That is all, Lady Bracknell. So pleased to have seen you twice.
Mr. Worthing. £30,000. Miss Cardew seems a most attractive young lady now that I really look at her. Few girls of the present day have any really solid qualities that last and improve with time. Come here, dear. Pretty girl, your dress is sadly simple and your hair almost as nature might have left it, but that's not anything that cannot be altered. The use of a thoroughly experienced French maid can produce a really marvelous result in a very brief space of time. I do remember recommending one to young Lady Lansing, and within 3 months her own husband did not know her.
And within 6 months, nobody knew her.
Turn around, dear child. Oh, no, the side view. The side view is what I want. Aha. Just as I expected, there are distinct social possibilities in your profile. Yes. The main 2 weak points in our society are its want of principle and its want of profile. Now, the chin, a little higher, dear. Style largely depends on where the chin is worn. It is worn very high just at present. Yes. Algernon. There are distinct social possibilities in Miss Cardew's profile.
Cecily is the sweetest, dearest, prettiest girl in the whole world, and I don't care tuppence for social possibilities.
Never speak slightingly of society, Algernon. Only those who can't get into it do that. Now, Cecily, dear, you know that Algernon only has his debts to depend upon. But I myself do not approve of mercenary marriages. When I got married to Lord Bracknell, I had no fortune of any kind, but I did not let that get in my way. I suppose I must give my consent.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Cecily, you may kiss me.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell.
You may call me Aunt Augusta.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
I do think the wedding had better take place as soon as possible.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
I myself am not in favor of long engagements. They provide the opportunity of learning about each other's character before marriage, and that I think is never advisable.
I beg your pardon for interrupting you, Lady Bracknell, but this engagement is out of the question. I am Miss Cardew's guardian, and she cannot marry without my consent until she comes of age. And that consent I absolutely decline to give.
Why ever not? Algernon is an extraordinarily, I may say ostentatiously eligible bachelor. He has nothing but looks everything. What more could one desire?
It pains me to speak so frankly to you, Lady Bracknell, about your nephew. But I do not approve at all of his moral character. I suspect him of being untruthful.
Untruthful? My nephew Algernon? Impossible. He is an oxen.
I'm afraid there can be no doubt about the matter. During my temporary absence in London this afternoon on a very important question of romance, he obtained admission by means of the false pretense of being my brother. And under an assumed name, he drank, I have just been informed by my butler, an entire pint bottle of my Perrier Jouet Brut 89, a wine I was specially reserving for myself. In the course of the afternoon, he succeeded in alienating the affections of my only ward. He subsequently stayed to tea and devoured every single muffin. What makes his conduct all the more heartless is he knew from the first that I have no brother. I never had a brother, and I do not intend on having a brother. I told him so myself yesterday afternoon.
Mr. Worthing, after careful consideration, I have decided to completely overlook my nephew's behavior towards you.
That is very gracious of you, Lady Bracknell. My own opinion, however, remains unalterable. I decline to give my consent.
Come here, dear. Come here. How old are you?
Well, I'm really only 18, but I always admit to 20 at evening parties.
As well you should. A woman should never give her exact age. It looks so calculating. 18, but admitting to 20 at dinner parties. Well, you will soon become of age, and then free from the restraints of tutelage, so I don't think that your guardian's consent is, after all, of any importance.
Pray excuse me for interrupting you again, Lady Bracknell. But it is only fair to tell you that according to the terms of her grandfather's will, Miss Cardew does not legally come of age until she is 35.
I see no reason why that should be any grave objection. 35 is a very attractive age. There are many women in London who, of their own free choice, have been 35 for years. Lady Dumbleton is an instance in point. I believe she has been 35 ever since she arrived at the age of 40, which I believe was many years ago now. I see no reason why our Cecily shouldn't be more attractive at the age you mentioned than she is at present. There will be a large accumulation of property.
Algie,
Yes.
could you wait for me till I was 35?
Of course I could, Cecily. You know I could.
Yes, I felt it instinctively, but I couldn't wait all that time. I hate waiting even 5 minutes for anybody. It always makes me rather cross. I'm not punctual myself, I know, but I do like punctuality in others. And waiting, even to be married, is quite out of the question.
Well, what is to be done, Cecily?
I don't know, Mr. Moncrieff.
Mr. Worthing, as you can see, Cecily states positively that she cannot wait till she is 35 to be married, a comment which I am bound to say shows a distinct, impatient character. I would beg you to reconsider your decision.
But my dear Lady Bracknell, the matter is entirely in your own hands. The moment that you consent to my marriage with Gwendolen, I will gladly allow your nephew to form an alliance with my ward.
What? You must know that what you propose is completely out of the question.
Well then, a passionate celibacy is all any of us can look forward to.
That is not the future that I propose for Gwendolen. Algernon, of course, may choose for himself. Gwendolen, we have already missed 5, if not 6 trains. To miss any more will subject us to comment on the platform.
Everything is quite ready for the christening.
Christening, sir? Is that not somewhat premature?
Well, these gentlemen have expressed a desire for immediate baptism.
Baptism at their age? The idea is irreligious and grotesque, Algernon. I forbid you to be baptized. Your uncle would be very disappointed indeed if he knew that this is the way you were wasting your time and money.
I to understand then that there are to be no christenings at all this afternoon.
It seems as things are now, Dr. Chausble, it wouldn't be of much use to either of us.
I am grieved to hear such sentiment from you, Mr. Worthing. they savor the heretical views of the Anabaptists. Views I have completely refuted in 4 of my unpublished sermons. However, as your present mood seems to be one peculiarly secular, I will return to the church at once. Indeed, I have just been informed by the pew opener that for the last hour and a half, Miss Prism has been waiting for me in the vestry.
Miss Prism? Did you say Miss Prism?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, I am on my way to join her.
Let me detain you a moment. This matter may prove of grave importance to Lord Bracknell and myself. Is this Miss Prism a woman of repellent aspect, remotely connected with education?
She is the most cultivated of ladies. A very picture of respectability.
It is obviously the same person. Might I ask, what is Miss Prism, what is she in your household?
I am a celibate, madam.
Miss Prism, Lady Bracknell, has been for the last 3 years Miss Cardew's esteemed governess and a valued companion.
In spite of what I hear of her, I must see her at once. Send for her immediately.
But she approaches. She is nigh.
I was told you wanted me in the vestry, dear Canon. I've been waiting for you an hour and 3 quarters.
Prism, come here, Prism. Prism, where is that baby? 28 years ago, Miss Prism, you left Lord Bracknell's house at 104 Upper Grosvenor Street with charged a perambulator containing a baby of the male sex. You never returned. After weeks of thorough investigation by the Metropolitan Police, the perambulator was discovered in a remote corner of Bayswater, but the baby was not there. Instead, it contained a 3-volume manuscript of the most revolting sentimentality, but the baby was not there. Where is that baby, Prism?
Lady Bracknell, I admit with shame I do not know. I only wish I did. The plain facts of the case are these. On the morning in question, a morning that will forever be branded in my memory, I planned as usual to take the baby out in the perambulator. I had also with me a somewhat old but capacious-looking handbag in which I planned to place the manuscript of a work of fiction in which I worked in my few unoccupied hours. In a moment of mental abstraction, I placed the manuscript in the bassinet and the baby in the handbag.
Yes, but where did you deposit the handbag?
Do not ask me, Mr. Worthing.
Miss Prism, I need hardly say that this is a matter of no small importance to me. I insist on knowing where you deposited the handbag that contained that infant.
In one of the cloakrooms in one of the larger railway stations in London.
What railway station?
Victoria, the Brighton line.
I must retire to my room for a moment, Gwendolen. Wait here for me.
If you are not too long, I will wait here for you all my life.
What do you think this means, Lady Bracknell?
I dare not suspect, Dr. Chausble. You see, in families of high society, coincidences are not supposed to happen. They are hardly considered the thing.
Uncle Jack seems strangely agitated.
Your guardian has a very emotional nature.
This noise sounds very much like an argument. I detest arguments. They are always vulgar and very often convincing.
It has stopped now.
I wish you would come to some conclusion.
This suspense is terrible. I hope it will last.
Miss Prism, is this the handbag? Examine it carefully before you speak. The happiness of more than one life depends upon your answer.
It certainly appears to be my handbag. Yes, here is the star that I got from the Gower Street omnibus in younger and happier days, and here in the lining is a stain caused by an explosion of a temperance beverage caused in Leamington. And yes, here are the initials that I got on the lock in a very extravagant mood. I am very delighted to be reunited with it. It has been a great inconvenience not having it all together.
Miss Prism, more is restored to you than this handbag. I was the baby you placed in it.
You?
Yes, Mother.
Mr. Worthing, I am unmarried.
Unmarried? I do not doubt this is a serious blow, but who has the right to cast a stone against one who has suffered so much? Cannot repentance wipe out an act of folly? Why should there be one law for men and another for women? Mother, I forgive you.
Mr. Worthing, there is some error. There is the woman who can tell you who you really are.
Lady Bracknell, I hate to seem inquisitive, but would you kindly inform me of who I am?
I am afraid the news I have to give will not altogether please you. You are the son of my unfortunate sister, Mrs. Moncrieff, and consequently Algernon's elder brother.
Algy's elder brother? Then I have a brother after all. I always said I had a brother. Cecily, how could you have doubted that I had a brother? Dr. Chausble, my unfortunate brother. Miss Prism, my unfortunate brother. Gwendolen, my unfortunate brother. Algy, you'd better treat me with more respect in the future. You never acted like a brother to me in all your life.
Not till today, old boy, I admit. I did my best, though I was out of practice.
But what are you? What is your Christian name now that you've become someone else?
I had quite forgotten that point. Your opinion on the matter remains irrevocable, I suppose.
I never change, except in my affections.
What a noble nature you have, Gwendolen.
Then the matter had better be cleared up at once. Lady Bracknell, a moment. When Miss Prism deposited me in that handbag, had I been christened already?
Well, every luxury that money could buy, including christening, had been lavished on you by your fond and doting parents.
Then I was christened, and that settles it. Now, what name was I given? Let me know the worst.
Being the eldest, you were naturally christened after your father.
Yes, but what was my father's Christian name?
I cannot at the moment recall the General's Christian name. I am certain he had one. He was a bit eccentric, but that was only in later years, due to the Indian climate and marriage and indigestion, things of that sort.
Algy, can't you remember what our father's Christian name was?
My dear boy, we were never even on speaking terms. He died before I was a year old.
His name would appear in the army list of the period, wouldn't it, Lady Bracknell?
The General was essentially a man of peace, except in his domestic life, but I am sure that his name would appear in any military directory.
The army list of the last 40 years are here. These records should have been my constant study. And generals. Malum, Maxwell, Magri. What ghastly names they have. Markley, Migsby, Mobbs, Moncrieff. 1940. Lieutenant, Captain, Lieutenant Colonel, Colonel, General. 1969. Christian names. Earnest John. I told you that my name was Earnest, didn't I? It is Earnest, and naturally it is Earnest after all.
I do recall the General's name was Earnest. I knew I had a particular reason for disliking the name.
Ernest, my own Ernest. I felt from the first you could have no other name.
It is such a terrible thing for a man to find out quite suddenly that he has been speaking nothing but the truth his entire life. Can you forgive me?
I can, for I feel you are sure to change.
My own one.
Letitia.
Cecily, at last! Gwendolen, at last.
My nephew, you seem to me to be displaying signs of triviality.
Oh, on the contrary, Aunt Augusta. I have, for the first time in my life, realized the vital importance of being earnest.